Okay, so you've just picked up running, or maybe you've been running for a while, but you recognize that you need to up your strength and conditioning, leg exercises, and you need to get in the gym, but you don't know where to start. When you get in the gym, you might be intimidated because you don't really know what to do. You've come to the right video. Now, I know I'm an average runner, but I'm actually a level 3 qualified personal trainer. Therefore, I know exactly what you need to be doing. And in this video, we're going to talk about exactly that. Here are my 4 principles to live by in the gym. Number 1, warm up first. Now, by this, I don't mean doing leg swings like you do when you're about to do a run or anything like that. The simplest way to remember this, just do the exercises you're going to do with no weight. So maybe body weight or less weight. The less intensity, the better in terms of the load. And that gets your muscles warmed up, ready for exactly the movement you're about to do. Number 2, form is crucial. Do not ego lift. Don't go try lifting heavy things if you're not well accustomed to the movement you're about to do. Honestly, that is the best recipe for injury. Number 3, compound movements first. In other words, an exercise like calf raises is an isolated movement. It focuses on a small, isolated individual muscle group. Whereas a squat movement is a compound movement. It requires the movement of several muscle groups. So we always start with those big movements first and finish with the isolated movements. Number 4, always, let me get close for this. Always start light. You don't need weights at the beginning. Please, please, please keep it light. Simply because regardless of how you start, you're gonna ache 2-3 days after this workout. The lighter you go, the less that ache, and the more you're guaranteed to be back in the gym for another session. Those are the 4 principles. Let's start with the workouts. So I've got 6 movements in this workout for you. We've got 2 squat movements. It's gonna be a barbell squat. But if that's too advanced for you, we're gonna do the same, but with a dumbbell for a goblet squat. And then we're gonna move to split squats. These are gonna be key, and I'm gonna explain why in a bit. After that, we've got 2 hip hinge movements. Deadlifts, which we're gonna do with a kettlebell. I don't want it to be with a barbell at this level. And then we're gonna do some hip thrusts. And then we're gonna move to calf raises. And what is often ignored, and I'm just picking this up myself, a movement for your tibia. Let's get started. Okay, let me start with the barbell squat. Now look, there are many different ways of doing this, and don't let anyone tell you one specific way, because physically we're made up differently. So my stance that feels great for me might not be yours. But one thing to always be careful for is form to avoid injury. This movement is a knee flexion movement. It's not a hip hinge. So when you do your squat, you don't want to be overly bending at the hip and doing that. That is not what a squat is. What you want to do is find some good bend and hold it and focus on knee flexion, that your lower back actually stays fixed. And what I like to do as well is find something on the floor that I can keep my feet on, that every rep, every set is the same. So what I'm going to ask you to do is keep this light. Even if you just do it with the bar, that's enough. We're gonna go down, find the place that your lower back feels great, keep it there and there. Yes, it's gonna hip hinge a little bit, but do not go exaggeratedly like that. All that's gonna do is put all of this weight on your lower back, and you don't want that. So what you wanna do is find what's good for you and focus on knee flexion. And therefore, this weight that I'm carrying is loaded by my leg muscles, as opposed to my lower back. Let me give you an easier, a moderate version of this, which is the goblet squat. Now this is an easier variation. It's the same movement. It's a squat movement. What you're gonna try and do is pick up the dumbbell and you have it vertical and hold the top section of your dumbbell. And I would like to advise you that you then bring your elbows in, and therefore we're gonna go back to that squat movement. I want you to place your feet wide enough that your elbows can then actually go in between your knees. Again, we don't want to hip hinge. We don't want to be lowering this way and that way. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is find what's comfortable and focus on knee flexion. Now, we're going to try and exaggerate the range of motion. In other words, the muscle group we're working on, make them work. Don't do partial movements like this. Give those muscles a good chance to have a full range of their motion. Bang. Some people like the goblet squats with that going, with the elbows going outside their knees. For me, the weight is eventually going to hit your knees. So I like to space them out, let it go through, and it allows me for that range of motion we just talked about. Now, this movement we're about to talk about comes with a warning. It won't feel nice. If the devil himself was an exercise, it would be this one right here. It's called a split squat, or rear foot elevated squat, or a Bulgarian split squat. Essentially, it's a unilateral movement. In other words, meaning the weight is loaded onto one leg. The beauty of doing that exercise, sometimes your stronger side masks the weakness on your other side. So it exposes things like that. Essentially, you're gonna hook this foot elevated. You can do this on a chair. It doesn't need to be on a special piece of equipment. Hang the back foot and take the front foot forward. Essentially, when you lower, you want the back leg to form a straight line with the rest of you, and the front leg to also give you that 90-degree angle. So this feels great for me, and I'd like for you to have balance. So essentially, what I like to do is put my hands across here, and I go down and up. As you get better, you can hold dumbbells to add the load to this. I don't want you adding any weight right now. All we're gonna try and do is go down and up. We're gonna do 8 reps on each side. Actually start with 4. When you get better, you can balance better, you get strength. We're then gonna up that to maybe 5. Eventually we'll get to 8 reps, 4 sets. Right, that's it with the knee flexion or the squat movements. Let's talk about the hip hinges, the deadlifts. Now these are really, really crucial for your hamstrings and glutes, and you will know how important those are for running. For deadlifts, I don't want you to automatically go to a barbell or anything like that. I'm gonna demonstrate using a kettlebell, but you can also use a dumbbell. What I'd like for you to do is focus on 2 things. On lowering the weight, I actually want you to think of putting your glute back and down. Not just lowering this weight, but for this to be a hamstring and glute focused deadlift, I want you to put a slight bend to your knees. As we lower the weight, we're gonna push the bum out and down. That's the first step. On the way up, I want you to reverse that. Squeeze on the hamstrings and squeeze on the glutes as you come up. Avoid actually lifting the weight with your arms. So let's run that through. You've got the weight, feet shoulder width apart, slight bend in your knees. I want you to put your bum back. You're gonna feel a stretch in your hamstrings and your glutes. To pick it up, we're not gonna lift this weight with our arms. We're simply gonna squeeze on the hamstrings and glutes. Out. You'll have to excuse me. The best way I can show you is literally with my bum in your face. So, bang. Out. And squeeze on the way in. Out and squeeze on the way in. There you go. Again, start with 4 reps. Start with a low weight and then work your way up. Hip thrust next. Even though it doesn't look like it, this is also a hip hinge movement like we just did with the deadlifts. But this is very, very good for focusing the weight on your glutes as well as your hamstring, depending on how you do it. Now, normally, as you advance, you will start loading with a barbell. You put a padding on the barbell and therefore can do these hip thrusts. I know it looks funny, but I promise you it's effective. Normally, guys, for some reason, underrate this and just leave it to the girls to do in the gym. But I promise you, it's an effective way of developing your hamstrings and glutes, especially for running. So here's how we're gonna do it. I want you to start on the up version, on the up section of this movement. Essentially, you want a 90-degree angle here. But like I say, all of our anatomy is different. You might need to try this several times to feel what feels good for you. So, on the up, we're gonna find that 90-degree section. We're gonna go down. I want you to tuck your chin and look forward. I'm not doing this every time. Keep your sight forward bang, bang, and bang. Now to make this a bit more challenging, a bit more load, unilateral version of that is you put one leg out and start moving that weight onto one leg. And that's what I've been prescribed actually by my physio to kind of strengthen my hamstring because I've got a weakness there. Boom. Onto the lower leg section, we're gonna do calves. Now, my weakness are my calves. So every session I do in my gym, I always end it with calf raises. And my physio has actually recommended that I do this, and I'm starting to do these on one leg, but I wanna show you firstly how to do calf raises properly on both legs. You're gonna find somewhere elevated. So I use this little patch here. And what you're gonna wanna do is you step on and lower your leg as far as it will let you without losing balance. This is very important. That's why you're gonna find an elevated part. So when you lower your leg, take it down with control, legs straight, lift your whole body down. We're gonna give ourselves 1 second at the bottom, 1 second at the top. 1 second at the bottom, 1 second at the top. If you're doing this properly, once you start getting to 10 reps, 15 reps, it starts feeling different. But my version that I'm doing now is doing that, but on one leg. So I'll show you that now. And like I said, the unilateral movements where you're doing things on one foot exposes weakness. You will find that maybe one leg is stronger than the other. If you keep doing it on 2 feet, the strength of the one foot is going to hide the weakness of the other. So you're going to try and do 8 repetitions on one side. 1, 2, 3. And when you're done with that side, go over to the other side and do 8. There you go. Without a doubt, you will notice that one side is faring better than the other. But keep going. I guarantee that we will eventually balance out. Anyway, let's look at this tibia movement, which has been highly ignored by many, including me. Now, I've had to compromise because I don't have the T-bar for this. But if you have a resistance band, this will work for you. Let me talk you through it. I'm going to show you this exercise. You have a choice of doing this with a kettlebell or a resistance band. The easier one, the less fiddly one, is the kettlebell. Simply hook the kettlebell onto your shoe, just like that, and essentially slowly lower it and bring it down. Slowly lower it, and then you're gonna bring it up, controlled. Now for me, you can see that as I lower it, I'm very jittery. Bring it up. That's gonna come with time and with control as I strengthen my leg. But this is something you cannot do without, especially if you get shin splints. Bang. The alternative is with a resistance band. Find somewhere where you can tie the resistance band, and then through the loops, you would be able to then hook your foot onto there, move far back. The further back you go, the more tension this thing is gonna have. And you're essentially gonna do the same thing. It's gonna challenge that muscle, and you will see it actually working. Those are the 2 versions. Essentially, that's what I suggest you do if you don't have the T-bar that's actually built for this movement. For me personally, these 2 at the end are my key focus. The calf raises and the movement for your tibia. Look, if you found any of that useful, consider subscribing to the channel. It would be good to have you. My name is Aubrey, and I will see you on the next one.